One, two, three, four!
Greetings, this is Tom with Buncombe Shinola. Welcome to our series, Humming a Sickening Tune, where we shall be reviewing every single Ramones song in order alphabetically. Today, we shall be discussing Beat on the Brat from the debut album. Just 2 songs into their debut album, the Ramones boldly stake out the territorial humor of their lyrical content, well beyond the vaguely distasteful objectionableisms of their opening track, Blitzkrieg Bop. Sprung from Joey's overfamiliar frustration at Forest Hill's overlapping familial housing logistics, it strikes out brashly at accepted boundaries, repetitively marking turf in a humor so, to use one of the band's favorite affectionate appraisals, sick, that its extremity somehow flies past offensiveness to land in a sort of cartoonish absurdity. It certainly must have been jarring for a first-time listener, just 2 songs deep, who might still not have the beneficial grasp of their amusing contrariness or overall aesthetic. In fact, Brat might represent the plainest, most archetypal example of their demented comedy. Teenage Lobotomy, Gimme Gimme Shock Treatment, We're a Happy Family, Pinhead, they surely all rank, but these all feature considerably far more complicated melodies and or punchlines. Beat on the Brat, however, is one of the most easily mastered of all the band's songs for beginning players. The 2-note riff which opens the track seems to be a distorted homage to the intro of the 60s AM pop classic Yummy Yummy by the Ohio Express, further cementing the band's bewilderingly bizarre regurgitation of their bubblegum roots. The verse section is rooted in 1-4-5, the second in a row and a second in a series of 4 that share this trait throughout the album, before moving to a 2-chord bridge and a third section which combines the previous parts. It all adds up to almost nursery rhyme level simplicity, except for one notably unexpected arrangement aberration, varying the number of accents appendaged at the end of every intro. First twice, then 4 times, then 3? And for that opening riff, the Ramones employ a device which they will turn to again and again on their early albums. Johnny, starting on the 7th fret, utilizes the most primitive bar chord change possible, popping up from B to E. Meanwhile, Dee Dee, who has quirkily rooted his bass part on the 3rd string of his bass, jumps down from a relatively high B to a lower E simultaneously. This perhaps unplanned technique results in an odd dissonant tension in even the simplest of their chord progressions. Tommy, on the other hand, offers regular snare drum flourishes throughout the verses, easily this performance's most uncharacteristic attribute, but the drums are recorded so flatly that one might not even notice. Joey then stirs the stew a further step, imbuing his vocal with an incongruously, almost sexual, come-on-ish sultriness on the verse before rising to a passionate plea on the chorus. Mind you, we're talking about a song that is only 3 or 4 sentences. There's no telling where things might go. One part fills up the space at the end of a line with an attractive melodic figure of yeah and ohs, while later a desolate measure is merely given a blasé one-note reading of words like lose. The results lean toward delirium, although this is personal testimony. I've had a girlfriend tell me straight up that she thought this was Joey's all-time sexiest vocal. So there you go. Say what you will, beat on the Brat. Consider then Joey's bizarre vocal the cherry on top of a litany of oddball factors that still somehow chalk up to this distinctive, unquestionable Ramones classic. The first Grade A we've discussed on this channel, although there are certainly more to come in the letter B. Despite its quirky, questionable traits, or indeed because of them, the song stands as one of the band's most identifiable offerings, and the strength of the strange appeal of this dastardly ditty cannot be overstated. It is a concoction that could not have been conceptualized by any other rock and roll combo. What do I like least about this song? Well, this is the first time on Humming a Sickening Tune that we've discussed a song from the first album. I don't want to focus on this too much here. I'll be discussing it a lot more later, but there's no getting around discussing the production of the first record. Primary problems are twofold. First off, they made the decision to record the guitars and bass hard stereo separation in a sort of homage to the early stereo releases in America by the Beatles. A baffling production choice, especially for a band whose stated raison d'etre was seemingly to jettison pretension in rock. But if you've ever been in a supermarket and the Muzak was playing a song in stereo, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But even if you're just listening at home, to have these instruments separated in this manner detracts from the overall power of the music in a way that's just not, you can't deny it. On top of that, I think there was a recurring misstep made on proto-punk albums from the first Stooges to Back in the USA by the MC5. The mix on the first Ramones record probably falls somewhere between those two, that it would behoove the recordings to be mixed and mastered as hot, unquote, as possible. But in the end, that just made them sound really trebly and not very balanced. The medium-tempo, lurching nature of the piece shows off the production to lesser effect. And between Dee Dee's disdain for his E string and Johnny's muted guitar chords, the song hardly has any low-end response at all. And the drums are just so dryly recorded that even that interesting repeated snare motif on the verse is rendered almost inconsequential. All of this in a decade where the seamless sheen of glossy, overproduced studio trickery was the musical norm. And it's not like we didn't know that the Ramones couldn't be recorded fat. The demos they made before the first record sound amazing, you know. I'm not going to sit here and disparage producer Craig Leon. You know, I think I drew enough of his ire back when I was still writing this as a blog. But he helped finish getting the Ramones signed. He got this record made. To me, this record is the 14 Commandments, and to me, he will always be a stand-up hero to the story of the Ramones. But when it came time to release Blitzkrieg Bop as a single, you bet your ass that they put that shit out in mono, because they knew that it was only hurt to have the stereo separation on the 45. And decades later, when they finally had the commemorative reissue box set of the first album with all the extras and all the goodies and all the demos, the centerpiece is exactly what everyone has wanted this entire time to hear, which is that album in mono. And it sounds great. But that aside, I'm going to talk about all that a lot more later. What I like least about Beat on the Brat, of course, the first album is 14 Commandments, but to me, the greatest Ramones record and the greatest record ever, my personal favorite, is It's Alive, and it has virtually every great song by the Ramones from the first three records, except for Beat on the Brat. So I didn't know this at the time, but I mean, they played it live virtually all of the rest of their career, so that it's not appearing on It's Alive is so frustrating. But fast forward to years later, and I was bitching about it, and I don't really do Record Store Day too much, you know. I've already got too much. I don't really need to buy that many more LPs. But I had somehow overlooked that there was a 45 release of the Ramones for Record Store Day. I forget what year, but it was the remix of I Want to Be Sedated with a live version of Beat on the Brat on the B-side. And lo and behold, that is a recording of Beat on the Brat from the night that It's Alive was recorded, that they played during the sound check. And, you know, and I could go on about how the incredible oversight that is represented in the compilation of commemorative box sets, that something like this will be omitted. But Although this is my least favorite thing about being on the Brat, one of the best things that happened as a result is my photographer buddy, Mike Fickel, heard me bitch about it on social media and showed up at my job with the Record Store 45 to give me. I mean, what a cool thing to do, man. I couldn't believe it, you know. It's just one of the nicest things anyone's ever done for me. And that guy has taken amazing photographs of mine and a whole bunch of other bands over the years. So I'll definitely put some links down in the description to his work. But so the least favorite thing about being on the Brat for me did transform into a positive. And it also feeds into, what do I like most about this track? Well, you know, truth be told, I love almost everything about this track. I think this is the first bona fide classic Ramones track we've covered on Humming a Sickening Tune. Besides what I've mentioned already, I suppose what I like most about Be on the Brat is that the imagery of the baseball bat almost immediately became an integral part of the Ramones iconography. The Ramones visual director Arturo Vega almost immediately seized on the image, including it on his retooled presidential seal, which finally became the iconic Ramones logo. And a little bit later, in a highly dubious marketing move, Sire sent out these little baseball bats with the Ramones name out as some sort of promotional item. I mean, highly sought after for collectors now, but effective back in the day towards constructing a wider Ramones platform, probably not. But still cool little items. But the best way that this item was utilized was Joey in all of his 7 feet size frame, utilizing actual baseball bats as stage prop when the song was performed. And like I said earlier, we were really disappointed when Be on the Brat was left off It's Alive. And back in the day, before the internet, you know, I mean, you didn't know how Ramones' set list had progressed over the years or what they were likely to play or not, or, you know, you couldn't see every one of their gigs ever on YouTube or anything. Years later, when we finally got to see the Ramones for the first time in Albuquerque, New Mexico, touring on Too Tough to Die, you know, we're beside ourselves with excitement, you know. This gig was hectic. I mean, the sort of gig you just try to survive. We were just blown away by the action. Biggest pit I'd seen anywhere up to that point. In fact, the show was just mere days away from the famous Hollywood Palladium gig they played with Black Flag and the Minutemen, which actually resulted in a cop riot, or, you know, so the story goes, the cops were going to riot no matter what happened. By the way, I have a pretty cool Minutemen video you should check out. But as my friends and I were sitting there taking in the spectacle, there was no way to know if Beat on the Brat was indeed going to be on the set. But you knew, in between songs, when Joey strolled out to the front of the stage holding his baseball bat, that Beat on the Brat was coming. And it was so awesome, man. So awesome. You know, one other thing, I'm pretty sure I saw that at one point someone on YouTube made a video for Beat on the Brat that utilizes footage from the Warriors film, the section with the baseball Furies. I always remember what Danny Peary from Cult Movies said. They dress like the Yankees, but they swing like the Mets. But yeah, my favorite thing is just to have the baseball bat permanently emblazoned into the Ramones mythos. Hey, this is Tom with Buncombe Shinola. I'd like to thank you all for watching. I was hoping to avoid copyright strikes. I hope you enjoyed my playing, but I'll post a link to the original track so you can hear it. Down in the comments below, please let me know what you think of Beat on the Brat. Coming up next on Humming a Sickening Tune, Blitzkrieg Bop.